Monster Jam. I love it. Drink it in.
A nice day for Monster Jam.
Is there a bad day for Monster Jam?
The Diesel brothers weren't torn apart overnight, but what happened behind the scenes changed everything. For years, Heavy D Sparks and Diesel Dave Kiley built a powerful brand through Diesel Brothers, turning wild truck builds into a massive following. But after the cameras stopped, legal battles, personal struggles, and shifting priorities began pulling them in different directions. So what really happened between Heavy D and Diesel Dave after the show ended? And how did things reach the point they're at today? Join us as we uncover the real story behind the Diesel brothers and what changed between them. How two guys named David built something out of nothing. David Sparks was born on January 5, 1985, in Utah, the fourth child of a military family. His father died when he was 21. He had been interested in vehicles since high school, where auto mechanics was among his favorite subjects. He started college at Weber State University at 21, studying welding, mechanics, and fabrication, and then withdrew after a single semester to start his own business. He was splitting his time between two things: working as the director of marketing for Rockwell Watches, a Utah brand founded by one of his longtime friends, and operating heavy machinery for his uncle's construction company. From the second job, he eventually launched his own excavation business, which evolved into the vehicle customization and repair operation that became the foundation of everything that followed. He picked up his nickname, Heavy D, not from the rapper, but simply because he operated heavy machinery, and his first name was Dave. The name stuck and eventually became his entire public identity. David Kiley was born on June 17, 1984, in Texas, and moved frequently during childhood because his father worked on military bases. He settled in a town north of Salt Lake City, Utah, where he has spent most of his adult life. Both men are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and served proselytizing missions before building their professional careers. Diesel Dave served in Portugal for 2 years. The two men met at a young singles activity at their local church ward. They started talking and immediately found common ground in their shared passion for diesel trucks and their mutual interest in building things by hand. The friendship that became a business began with a specific incident. Heavy D had put regular gasoline into his diesel truck while trying to impress someone, and Diesel Dave helped him drain the fuel before it ruined the engine. Heavy D hired Dave shortly after. The problem-solving dynamic that defined their on-screen relationship was established in that first interaction, where one of them made a mistake, and the other fixed it without making it a bigger deal than it needed to be. Heavy D brought Diesel Dave into his equipment operation, and the two began building vehicles alongside their core work. They started posting videos on YouTube featuring their builds, stunts, and sense of humor. The videos accumulated an audience. The audience grew into something large enough to attract attention outside Utah. That attention eventually reached Jay Leno, who invited them onto his show. The Tonight Show appearance landed in front of the Discovery Channel, which contacted them about a television series. The jump from YouTube videos shot at a shop in Woods Cross, Utah, to a cable television series on one of the most popular unscripted programming networks in America happened in what felt, from the outside, like a very short time. The internal reality was years of work building the business, the social media presence, and the specific on-screen chemistry that made the format viable. But the speed of the recognition once it arrived was real. The partnership was built from a gasoline mistake, a church singles event, and years of posting diesel truck videos to YouTube. By the time Discovery came calling, the two men had been working together long enough that the show was documenting something real rather than manufacturing a relationship for the camera. So what was the show actually like? What made it work? And when did things start to shift? What the show was and why it worked. Diesel Brothers premiered on the Discovery Channel on January 4, 2016. The format was straightforward. Heavy D and Diesel Dave, along with two other crew members known as the Muscle and Redbeard, built and customized diesel trucks at their shop in Woods Cross, Utah, gave away vehicles to people who deserved them, pulled elaborate pranks on each other and on fans, and generally conducted themselves in a way that made diesel truck culture feel entertaining to people who might not otherwise have any particular interest in what a six-wheel drive military surplus axle looks like when it has been adapted for a monster truck application. The show ran for 6 seasons, with a 7th airing in 2020, alongside a special Monster Jam episode in which the crew attempted world records. The builds were genuinely impressive. Heavy D operated at the level of an engineer with a personality, someone who could take a concept that should not work, and, through a combination of technical knowledge and creative stubbornness, figure out a way to make it work. The Mega Ram Runner, a build based on a Dodge Ram 3500 with a Ford transmission, was displayed at the 2014 SEMA show and became one of the most recognized vehicles the shop had ever produced. The show required 1.5 vehicles per episode, meaning one completed build to deliver to a recipient, and one partially completed build to keep viewers coming back the following week. This production pace, combined with running the actual business and managing the increasingly complex legal situation that developed from 2016 onward, created a workload that both men have described in various interviews as relentless. But the format worked because the builds were real, the giveaways were real, and the friendship between the two leads was real in a way that audiences picked up on regardless of how familiar they were with diesel truck specifications. Diesel Dave filled the role of the charismatic front of house, the personality who could make the audience feel included in something, who brought energy and humor, and the specific kind of warmth that makes a long-running reality show feel like spending time with people you know. Heavy D was the engineering mind, the one whose ambitions were always slightly beyond what the current resources and timeline allowed, who pushed the builds further than they needed to go, because that was simply how he operated. The two complemented each other in the way that the most durable television partnerships do. One person grounding the other, each filling in what the other was missing, the combination producing something neither would have produced individually. When you lose that combination, you cannot easily replace it with something that functions the same way. And eventually, both men moved on from it. The show worked for 6 seasons and produced one of the most recognizable brands in automotive media. Then, the lawsuit arrived. And the lawsuit that started in 2016 did not end in 2016. It kept going, kept growing, kept generating consequences, until it eventually produced an arrest warrant and 3 days of solitary confinement in a federal jail. What was the lawsuit about? How did it escalate over 8 years? And what did it mean for the show and the partnership? The lawsuit, fines, and the morning the federal marshals arrived. In 2016, the same year Diesel Brothers premiered on Discovery, a group called the Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment filed a civil lawsuit against Heavy D, Diesel Dave, and their associates. The allegation was specific. The Diesel Brothers had been tampering with emissions control devices on diesel trucks, a practice known as rolling coal, which involves removing or defeating the equipment that reduces exhaust pollution and produces the dense black smoke that diesel enthusiasts associate with raw engine power. Rolling coal is illegal under the Clean Air Act. The lawsuit was filed as a citizen enforcement action, not by the EPA or the Department of Justice, but by a private advocacy group seeking civil penalties under the federal law. The amount they were seeking was $114 million. The legal process moved slowly and badly for Heavy D. In March 2020, United States District Judge Robert Shelby found that Sparks and his co-defendants had violated the Clean Air Act on hundreds of occasions, in addition to violating an earlier court injunction from 2018, and ordered them to pay approximately $761,000 in civil penalties to the government and $90,000 to Davis County. In March 2021, they were ordered to pay an additional $928,602 in legal fees to the Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment on top of the original penalty amounts. The appeals court upheld the previous verdicts in December 2021, while reducing the scope of the fines to eliminate penalties associated with trucks sold outside Utah. By the time the appeals process concluded, the total financial liability had been reduced considerably from the original demand, but remained a significant sum that Heavy D disputes the fairness of to this day. The arrest that put Heavy D in the national news came on October 7, 2025. Federal marshals arrested him on contempt of court charges after a bench warrant was issued on October 2nd, citing his failure to pay $843,602.23 that he owed under the 2021 ruling. He was booked into the Salt Lake County Jail in Salt Lake City and placed in the maximum security wing for 3 days of solitary confinement. Yes, I was arrested on Tuesday morning as I was preparing to board a jet to speak at an event on behalf of the state of Utah, Heavy D said in an Instagram video after his release. Yes, I just walked out of 3 days of solitary confinement in the maximum security wing of the Salt Lake County Jail. He characterized the arrest not as a failure to pay money he legitimately owed, but as a principled refusal to participate in what he described as a broken legal system being exploited by attorneys who had learned to turn environmental enforcement into a personal revenue stream. This was about standing up to a broken system that's been hijacked by bad actors, mostly lawyers, who have learned to twist environmental laws into personal profit machines, he said in the video. He described it as a fight he had to have to prevent the same approach from being used against other people and businesses in Utah. The Utah Physicians for a Healthy Environment, in the aftermath of Heavy D's social media response to the arrest, reported that its members and their attorney were receiving frightening threats as a direct result of his statements and the audience that reacted to them. The group had to take protective measures. Heavy D was released from custody after a judge ordered him released under an agreement in which he agreed to provide certain financial information to the opposing party within 10 days. He described his release as a victory. The opposing party described the case as ongoing. The legal proceedings connected to the emissions lawsuit have continued in various forms from 2016 to the present, representing an 8-year stretch of litigation that has consumed significant financial and personal resources on Heavy D's side of the dispute. The lawsuit ran for 8 years. The arrest happened in October 2025. The show had already ended before any of that. What did the end of Diesel Brothers actually look like? Who made the decision? And what have Heavy D and Diesel Dave each been doing since the cameras stopped rolling? After the show, 2 different directions. The Diesel Brothers show ended after its 2020 run, with the final season airing alongside the Monster Jam Breaking World Records special. For a time, there was uncertainty about the show's future, and rumors circulated that Discovery had canceled it due to the legal proceedings surrounding the emissions lawsuit. Both Heavy D and Diesel Dave pushed back against that narrative. According to a statement on the Sparks Motors website, the decision to end the show was their own. They had reached a point where the constraints of network television, the rigid production schedules, the limited creative freedom, and the corporate oversight that came with operating inside a major cable network's content library no longer aligned with what they wanted to be doing. They chose digital platforms over cable. The show stopped. The brand did not. Heavy D's post-show trajectory has been defined primarily by his entrepreneurial ambitions, which have consistently operated at a scale that the television format could not fully accommodate. He was hired by Nikola, the electric truck company, to design the Nikola Badger, a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle that was announced with considerable enthusiasm before the company canceled the Badger project in 2020. When Nikola canceled, Sparks purchased all the rights to the Nikola Badger and Power Sports programs himself. In February 2024, he announced via social media that he was taking ownership of those rights and had plans to bring the hydrogen fuel cell vehicle, along with electric UTVs and personal watercraft, to market under a new brand he was calling EMBR Motors. He also participates in Monster Jam as a driver and hosts an annual business education conference called Heavy Academy, where he teaches participants about entrepreneurship and business strategy. He has over 4.1 million YouTube subscribers and more than 10 million followers across all platforms. Diesel Dave's public presence after the show has been more focused on the entertainment and brand ambassador sides of their shared identity. He has continued to build and race in Monster Jam, driving vehicles including El Toro Loco and, later, a new version of Brodozer in 2026 featuring a Cat C13 engine and a smaller wheelbase than the original. In 2026, reporting from the monster truck community confirmed that the Diesel brothers are actively building a new Brodozer for competition, which suggests that the professional relationship between the two men, while significantly changed from its peak Diesel Brothers television era, has not concluded entirely. The two men simply operate at different scales and in different directions than they did when the show was the central organizing principle of their professional lives. Heavy D describes himself as an engineering and entrepreneurial mind, reaching for the next large project. Diesel Dave serves as an entertainer and community connector, maintaining the relationship with the audience the show has built. The personal consequences of the period since the show ended have been considerable for Heavy D. In March 2026, Ashley Sparks filed for divorce from her husband of more than 15 years. The two had met at church in Utah in 2008 and married in August 2010. They share 3 children, a daughter, Charlie May, and 2 sons, Bo and Mac. No reason for the filing was listed in the public documents. The timing, approximately 5 months after the October 2025 arrest, and 3 years into the post-show period in which Heavy D's legal battles continued to generate pressure, speaks for itself without requiring any further commentary. Ashley had written publicly about marriage as recently as their 11th anniversary in 2021, describing the relationship as something built on focusing on the good rather than the bad, acknowledging that both of them had qualities the other did not enjoy, but characterizing their shared commitment as stronger than those frictions. By March 2026, the filing had been submitted. What does the story of this partnership actually reveal? The revelation. The story of Heavy D and Diesel Dave is, at its core, about what happens to a successful partnership when the external structure holding it together changes. When the show ended, by their own choice, the shared project dissolved into its component parts. Heavy D's component is large-scale entrepreneurship, designing hydrogen fuel cell vehicles, acquiring intellectual property from collapsed electric truck companies, building a brand around educating other entrepreneurs, and fighting a legal battle he frames as a matter of principle against an environmental enforcement system he believes has been corrupted. Diesel Dave's component is the community, the Monster Jam trucks, the entertainment presence, and the specific role of being a person the audience feels connected to. Neither of those directions is wrong. Neither represents a failure of the partnership. They represent 2 people who were better together in one specific context, discovering who they are separately in another. The partnership that audiences watched was real. The friendship that preceded it and built it was real. The divergence that followed the show's end is also real. And it is the kind of divergence that happens between people who are genuinely different and who spent years channeling those differences into a common project, rather than letting them pull in opposite directions. What makes the Heavy D story particularly unusual among automotive reality television personalities is the scale of the legal and personal consequences he has absorbed in the years since the show ended. 3 days in solitary confinement in a federal facility. A lawsuit that ran for 8 years and generated fines, appeals, attorney fees, and a court order that led to his arrest. A divorce filing from a wife he married at 25. These are the consequences of a person who operates at a level of ambition and confrontation that generates friction with the systems around him, and who makes choices, such as the decision to refuse to pay court-ordered attorney fees and frame the refusal as a stand on principle, that produce specific outcomes. Whether those choices reflect integrity or stubbornness depends on who you ask and what you believe about the system he is fighting. Diesel Dave's post-show profile is quieter and less turbulent. He has not been arrested. His marriage has not produced a divorce filing. He is building a new monster truck and competing at events that the audience who loved Diesel Brothers can attend and be part of. Where do you think both men go from here? And who do you think handled the post-show chapter better? Share your thoughts with us in the comment section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.